أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Welcome again to Real Talk. This week we have Taskeen Zahra Jaffer with us. I will allow her to introduce herself. Taskeen, tell us a little bit about yourself in the present. What you do.
So at the moment, I am a full-time mum of three little boys. One is 8 now. One is 4 and the other one is 2. Just before this, I was teaching. I'm a professional teacher. I'm a teacher by profession, is what I should be saying. I have studied at Khoja. I did about 3.5 years-ish at the Khoja here in London. Alongside that, I did my degree there. And then I did a master, and thereafter took a year out and then did my PGCE and then sort of straight into teaching and stuff like that. So that's what I've done sort of with the academic side. In terms of community, I've been involved in some volunteering at Istanbul Mosque. So teaching at madrasa. I served on the EC with Mustafa Uncle. Actually, if I could just, whilst we're on the subject, ask everyone to please recite Surah Fatiha for his quick shifa, inshallah. Sure. So I served on the EC with him, volunteered in sort of random things around the mosque as well. I'm a reciter as well in a group, that sort of thing. So yeah, just sort of involved here and there with things like that.
It's very heavily involved with community.
Yes, I over the years in lots of different capacities. Yeah, I have been.
So my question would be, how do you find the time with 3 young boys?
Well, I've sort of taken a bit of a step back now with that, just because of the fact that there are 3 young boys. I have 3 young boys. I was teaching. The last thing I think that I was quite heavily involved with was the youth Azadari drive, where we are teaching the youngsters how to recite in Urdu, Nawhas, Marthiyas, Qasidas, etc. And I had to take a step back from that because it was too difficult to try and juggle all of that with the boys at the moment. So yeah, but up until I think I had my 3rd, we were managing. We were managing to. I was still in madrasa and stuff like that as well. So yeah.
Alhamdulillah. One thing you haven't told us, told the viewers, is that you're actually a Syed. Do you want to explain that a little bit to us, please?
So the first thing I would say is, like for me, it was to understand what a Syed is, and the sort of the actual definition of one who is a Syed is one who is a descendant of both Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam through Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. And that is quite important. I think the fact that it's because of Bibi Fatima through the Holy Prophet through Bibi Fatima, that's what makes a Sayyid. Those who are born of Imam Ali from his other wives are Alawis. They are not Sadat, so to speak, technically. So yes, I am a Sayyid from both sides. Both my mum and my dad are Sayyids, and we are Radawi Sayyids, so from Imam Rada alayhi salam.
Did that make a difference in your life as you were growing up?
Growing up, it did. It in the sense that there was a lot of emphasis on the fact that we are Sayyid. I was told, you're Sayyid, so everything is double, gunnah double, thawab double. But I wasn't really explained why or the kind of implications of that. It was just it just sort of came with the territory. It's not until I sort of grew up a bit more and kind of found out about it myself that I thought, oh, actually, this means something. And it's, I knew what it meant. I knew that I was related to the Prophet, but I didn't understand the impact of it growing up as much. There were things that happened, things like, for example, when proposals would come, you would hear, like, for my cousins or my sisters, or even for myself, you'd hear, oh, they're from a good Sayyid family. So it would be an important thing, but I wouldn't understand why that was important, that the family was good and Sayyid, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So was it important for you to marry a Sayyid? Because you obviously
No.
haven't.
Yes, I haven't. It was.
Okay, was it important for your parents that you married a Syed?
So not my. I think even for my parents, it wasn't so important. For extended family, it was actually a very important thing. I think in my family background, it was quite important to the extent that one of my eldest cousins also got married into non-Sayyids, actually into Khojas, in Pakistan, and there was actually a bit of a family rift when that happened, because some of the family were quite against it. That why is it that you are marrying out of Sadat? But I mean, in time, even that was then accepted. And I've got 4 sisters, and the older 2 are married into, or were married into non-Sayyid families. And then the younger 3 of us, who, when we got married, all got married into Khojas. So it's kind of, it's changed in that way. Like the importance kind of fizzled out, I think, as we've got more involved with the community. I mean, I've grown up in Stanmore, but me being involved with the community and attending more and volunteering, all that sort of things obviously happened as I grew older and was able to do the volunteering and stuff like that. But even attending, I attended more as I grew up a bit more. Our family were quite traditional. We wouldn't necessarily come for all of the wafats and the shahadat, wafats and kushalis. We would come for the sort of 2 ashras of Muharram and the Mahi Ramadan dates, important dates. And I say that because for me, the whole of Mahi Ramadan is important, but as in we would come for the nights that, there were amal or majalis or things like that. So we started coming more for sort of every kushali and Thursday night programs and every wafat. When my sister, who's just older than me, she was able to drive, then she was able to take us to mosque all the time. So we were able to come all the time. And that's how I, sort of got more involved with the community.
So one of the differences by coming more often is you got more involved with the community. What else did you find was a positive of coming to the mosque more often?
So, if we're talking about, as we were talking about marriage, one of the things was that I think perhaps because we were so involved in the community, a lot of my friends probably didn't realize that I was Syed, but knew that I wasn't Khoja. But for example, a lot of aunties in the mosque didn't have any idea that I wasn't Khoja and would sort of speak to me in Gujarati and stuff. And that's not my mother tongue. So I would sort of be like, I'm really sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. But
a lot of Khoja girls don't understand Gujarati either, so it really makes no difference.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, so it was nice. There was obviously that sense of belonging when you've got friends and things there, which was actually quite different for me growing up, because when I was much younger, as I said, we would attend the mosque for those times during Muharram and Mahi Ramadan, and we would also attend madrasa. But growing up, I did find it a little bit difficult to integrate into the madrasa like groups and things. And I think that was, looking back on it now and looking how it is with my own son, my eldest one who's in madrasa now. I think that could have been not only due to perhaps some issues that people had with sort of outsiders coming into the mosque fold, but also because we weren't that involved in the community. So I see now, for example, I take my son to mosque for everything.
Yeah.
And so he sees his friends in, for example, the annex programs. And then, if we're there on, whatever other youth program, this and that, whatever we're there for, he's there. And so when he goes into madrasa, it's the same friends that are always there. And, a lot of his cousins go there. And so that's why there's sort of that community within the madrasa group that perhaps I had grown up finding that I couldn't sort of integrate with too much, because I wasn't going to mosque that much. But then as I got older and was in the community, it kind of felt like, I was part of this community. There wasn't any difference, so to speak. And then, as I said, when it comes to marriage and stuff, I got a lot of proposals from Khoja families. It didn't hinder that sort of thing at all.
So it wasn't that your parents were well known, or it was just because you made yourself sort of present in the mosque that people noticed you, and therefore the aunties would find out a little bit more about you and sort of approach either you or someone in your family.
My mom or whatever. I mean, again, my parents didn't attend mosques as much as us sisters did. I mean, my dad's there every Friday and stuff, so like he knew a lot of people, but they didn't necessarily know that he had daughters, for example. But obviously then in the ladies' side, in the mosque, the more I attended, the more people knew who we were. And then that's happened for me, my elder sister and my younger sister as well.
So I think maybe one of the things that comes out of this conversation is that, you know, a lot of people say that if you're well known within the mosque, then it's easier to get married. But maybe it's more about not the family being well known, but you're personally being well known by sort of just putting yourself out there.
Yes, definitely. I mean, like I said, as I grew up, I kind of got more involved in mosque, and because of that, with reciting, for example, that is what made me sort of, I guess, well known within the mosque.
Yeah.
You know, people saw me more. I was more exposed, and therefore, it wasn't difficult for people to then find out about me. And I've seen that with, you know, some of my friends and things as well. So yeah, I think definitely it doesn't matter whether your family attends so much. It is a big difference whether you attend or not.
Perfect. Going back to the concept, the fact that you grew up as a Syed, and obviously you still are a Syed. But as a child growing up, that sort of pressure that you must have been put under because you're a Syed, so there are certain things you can't do. You know, you need to behave a certain way. The expectation, was that there at all, or not really?
It was to a certain extent. I think I've probably put more of it. I've imposed more of that on myself growing up myself. Since I got older and understood it. It was kind of, there was kind of this privilege that was associated with being a Sayyid, that, oh, you know, you're from the Prophet's family, so that means that you've got it kind of, it had this kind of, like I said, it had a sort of privilege kind of status with it. And I think one of the best ways to sort of illustrate that was there was an extended member of the family who unfortunately didn't do too well in their studies, and I had another member of the family ask me, oh, you know, would he be able to get into the housa that you're studying in? I was like, huh? And they were like, well, you know, because he's Sayyid. And I'm like, okay, that's not a qualification. You know, and it was kind of that sort of attitude that I have seen fed through, that, you know, you're a Sayyid, okay, so that means that may qualify you to go and study at the hausa. And it's like, well, no, that's not necessarily what would, you know, you need to be interested in religion. You need to have, I mean, this was a degree course, so you have to have some kind of base qualifications. But it was that kind of attitude that I felt that there was, not so much the responsibility at like sort of it, that I feel that is more important. Because for me, I don't generally tell very many people that I'm Sayyid. And I've seen there's a difference when people find out. Another example, I was in Mashhad, and I was best to go there as my first ziyarat, and we were in the bazaar of Imam Rada alayhi salam, and I wanted to buy a ring, and my friend, I don't know why, she decided to tell the shopkeeper that I was a Radawi Sayyid. And the shopkeeper was like, oh my God, you know, you can't pay for the ring now. You just have to pray for me. And I was just like, no, I have to buy this. And no, he just, you know, it was so difficult. The gentleman really, really did not want to take any money for it. He kept telling me this was all mine. I'm like, no, it's really not all mine. It's the Imam's. But that, you know, that change, and oh my God, you're a descendant of the Imam. It was kind of like, it was very humbling, but it was quite scary, because it was like, oh my God, like I really need to make sure that I'm behaving in the correct way, and all that sort of thing.
But it would be very easy to actually abuse that, would it not?
I think it could be quite easy for people to abuse it. For me personally, I don't see it that way. I feel that it's a status that you don't just get it, you have to earn it. It's not in the sense that you've been born into this. Allah thinks that you've got something in you to prove. This is how I see it for myself, that if Allah has put me in this, He is telling me that I've got a responsibility. I've got to prove myself. You always talk about people's capacity, right? And like how Allah will always expect you to feel what your capacity is. And so I think if someone has been born into being a Sayyid, they have a particular capacity that Allah has seen, and they need to get up to that. But that doesn't, I think that can take, I think that will take me my whole life to work on it. I may not even reach it, but I don't think it's something that I'm just like, oh, I'm Sayyid, therefore I'm just going to be a certain way. I have to work for it. I have to earn it. If there is a respect, I have to earn it. I have to show that I can be in some ways similar to these infallibles that we are following. I have to be able to say that, you know what, if they turn around and say to me, yes, she's a follower. I don't even want to say, I'm scared to say descendant. It really kind of, I feel scared when people say, you know, oh, like that gentleman in Mashhad who said, this is all yours, pray to your grandfather. And it kind of, that really blows me, because I'm just like, whoa, you know? So yeah, I think it's something that has to be earned. I don't think it can be, I can understand how people may abuse it. Like I said, like, you know, for example, people saying, you know, just will they let him into Hawza by the virtue of the fact that he is Syed? For me, it's not like that. I feel like it needs to be earned. You need to work hard to make yourself a better person and a better
I love the way that you looked at the fact that God puts you in the position where you then have to sort of grow towards, because he knows you have the capability to. I'm looking at it from the perspective of, obviously, the Khojas that are watching, we're not Sayyids, we don't have the direct lineage, but what are the lessons that they could take away from your life, from, you know, what you've learned? Because obviously you're a Sayyid, but you've gone through you know, the sort of same sort of life situations that most people go through. So what are the lessons that you'd like to sort of just tell people? Like, for example, the fact that, you know, if they're born into a certain life situation, that the capability is there, that God's given you, and that's why he's put you there. What other things? I thought that was beautiful. Sorry. What other things?
No, that's absolutely fine. So, I mean, you always say, you know, everything happens. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason.
There's no randomness in his universe.
Right. There's no randomness in this universe. So, excuse me. So, again, you know, if Allah has put you in a certain situation, you know, we hear saying things like Alhamdulillahi ala kulli hal, that, you know, all praises to Allah in every situation that I am in, and things like that. I feel that if Allah has put you in a certain position, I guess is the word, then you need to do everything you can to make the best out of that. And I guess that's kind of going along the lines of sabr as well, that, you know, what is sabr? It is making the best of the situation. And I mean, these things come to mind. I'm thinking of Bibi Zainab alayha salam, like, you know, the way she saw, you know, Jamil in what happened in Karbala. And the only way she saw that is because she was put in that position and she made the best of it. She ensured that the message of Karbala reached 1400 years later to every single corner of this earth. And it was because of her. And it's because of how she took that position that she was in and made the best of it and fulfilled her potential for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no. So it was just that, you know, try and find the way to make the best of it, of whatever your situation is, for Allah. Think about what it is that he wants you to do in your position.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree totally. I think God puts you in very specific situations where he knows that this is where you're going to grow the most. And it's looking at the growth in those situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's beautifully put. I'm going to go back to how did you marry a Khoja? How did you meet, you and your husband?
So through you, if you remember, I think we had met on a course, and I came back from the course and I spoke to you and I said, oh, there was this guy there, and he ended up speaking to Abbas uncle and said, oh, there was this girl there, and then we had met through, I think we had our first meeting at your house actually. And I remember it was a bit strange because I didn't know his family at all, and his family didn't know my family at all. And I remember his mom was a little bit apprehensive. She's like, you know, we don't know these people, like, you know, and I think she was perhaps a little bit worried about the fact that there may have been a culture clash. But I mean, as soon as they got to know us, you know, obviously, alhamdulillah, it worked out absolutely fine. But we've seen, alhamdulillah, there's not, because again, I think the younger three of us were have grown up as part of the community. It's been very easy to kind of blend in and integrate. And so we've not had, alhamdulillah, any issues. In terms of how it's kind of affected family.
Okay,
so like,
no, wait.
No? Okay.
Before you go further on, I love the fact that you actually saw someone that you saw some qualities in him,
Yeah.
which, you know, you thought, okay, this is worth pursuing, and you had it in you to actually come and talk. In this case, it was to me, but to come and talk to someone a little bit older and say, look, how do I move forward with this? I think that's really beautiful. And again, I think a lot of girls feel like they don't have that right, or, you know, the proposal has to come from the boy. So, you know, when they see someone, or if the girl's parents see someone, they don't know how to actually move it forward, or, you know, how can we say that we want this boy because it makes our daughter look less off, sort of thing.
Okay. I mean, see, for me, I've always seen it in the way of the fact that Bibi Khadija alayha salam proposed to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. I've also kind of grown. My parents have kind of like when we grew up, my dad and my mom, they both always emphasized that we want you girls to be independent. So I was never very shy in that way. That, you know, I felt that, oh, maybe I shouldn't, it's not right for a girl to, but also, you know, alhamdulillah, because I had that relationship with you, you've been my mentor, you've been my teacher, I was able to, you know, call you up and say, look, this is what's happened, I've seen this person, he has really good akhlaq, what do you think I should do? And then you happen to be related, so that, you know, that made it easy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's, you know, if you look at the way Bibi Khadija did it, she didn't go up to the Holy Prophet. She's, you know, she had somebody who she went to speak to, and I think this is an important part. If we can, if there is a girl who has seen a guy and they, you know, they want to try and explore this, or the girl wants to try and approach it, I don't think there should be any shame at all in approaching the person or the family, because Bibi Khadija did it. You know, there was no, and she, you know, she is our mother, so it's like, you know, there's no shame in it, as far as
and the fact that sort of in the actual marriage nikah, it's the woman who proposes and the man who accepts. So
right,
again, I think it's the culture that holds us back, and I think it's beautiful that you know, you sort of put that aside and sort of, you know what, I see someone here who I feel like I can build a life with, who will bring me closer to God, who can be the father of my children, and, you know, I'm going to do something about it. I think that's really beautiful. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Okay, now you can move forward.
So just in terms of the effect of being Syed and my children, so I actually didn't tell my kids until very recently what it means to be a Syed, because I didn't think they'd done. I say my children, my eldest is 8, so, you know, we've been talking about the Holy Prophet and this and that and the children, and then it kind of came up as like, oh, you know, Mama is a descendant of the 8th Imam alayhi salam, and he was kind of like, what, you know, and I was like, yeah, so that means that you are as well, you know, you are a Sayyid, but through your mom. I mean, in terms of obviously fiqh, the rules don't apply to him because it's through the lineage has to be through the male for the fiqh rules to apply. But in terms of the responsibility, that does apply to him because he does have the blood of the Prophet in him, and he does need to be responsible for that. And so that's sort of come in very recent, literally this year, very recently, where it's kind of been like, you know, we have to make sure that we are setting an example, because, you know, the 6th Imam has told us that we must invite people to our religion through example, but within our religion we have to make sure that we are setting the example, because who do we look to? We look to the Ahlul Bayt, and if people realize that we're, you know, we're descended from them, then they'll look to us. And so we've got to make sure that, you know, we are doing the best we can and that we are following the best we can and all that sort of thing. So it's right now it's just trying to get them to understand that it's a responsibility as opposed to a privilege.
I think someone's actually commented on the chat, which is really beautiful. It says, if someone's deeds lower his position, his pedigree cannot elevate him, and that's a hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam, and that's exactly what you're saying. It doesn't matter that you're born a Sayyid, you actually have to make sure that your actions show that you are a Sayyid.
Right, exactly. So it almost as if, you know, if somebody was to figure it out, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not surprised. That's what it should be, because they behave in that way, as opposed to, oh, okay, they're a Sayyid. Oh, okay, like, you know, they don't act like that. And that would be, you know, that would be a great disappointment, I'm sure, for the Ahlul Bayt if somebody who is a Sayyid isn't behaving like how their family. I mean, at the end of the day, I see one of the things that I grappled with at the beginning was, it was like, you know, when you said, how did I find it growing up? When I sort of understood the gravity of it, I did for a bit feel like, oh my God, why me? Like, why did Allah do this? Why did He put me in this position? And then I thought, well, and then that's when I sort of took it as tried to make it a motivating factor for myself, as opposed to a, oh my God, you're condemned to hell sort of thing. But there are instances in the lives of the Aimma alayhim Islam, the lives of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim Islam, where you see that there are those who are obviously part of their family, but do not behave like them. You've got Jaffer al-Kadhab, you've got, the Prophet's uncle, you've got so many examples of those who are direct descendants or relations of the Prophet and the Aimma alayhim Islam who haven't behaved in the way that they should. And we know that they've been spoken about and told to us that these people are not good people. But then, for example, you've got people like Hazrat Salman, who is known as not Salman al-Farsi but Salman al-Muhammadi, because he was behaving in the way that the Ahlul Bayt wanted. So I guess going back to what you were saying about those who aren't born into Sayyid families, that doesn't mean that you can't be like the Ahlul Bayt. That doesn't mean that you can't become part of them through your actions. So whether we are Sayyid or not Sayyid or whatever, if we strive to be like Hazrat Salman, then that's kind of the aim.
Yeah, no, that's really beautifully put. Thank you for that. I think when you were initially talking about the responsibility, I think one of the things that I constantly think about and sort of have conversations with people about is, to have good akhlaq is to be a human being. But if you're a Muslim, then you need to have better akhlaq. And if we're actually claiming to be the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, then we need to have the best akhlaq. And I constantly think about, when I go back to God and Imam Ali alayhi salam standing there, I'm so scared that he's going to come and tell me, what right did you have to call yourself my Shia when this is the way you behaved? And it's quite a scary thought, because I need to live up to the fact that I'm claiming to be his follower, his Shia. So I can imagine the weight of us being a Sayyid must be as compared to just a Shia.
So yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like I said, when it first kind of hit me, and like that's why I say I'm scared to say it, because it kind of makes it real almost. Yeah. I'm trying as much as I can to take that as a make it a motivating factor, as opposed to a something that will make me feel worse. I'm trying to make it so that it motivates me to become better. But it's very scary to think that to turn around and the God forbid any of the Ahlul Bayt sort of say to us, yeah, you might be related to us, but you're not one of us. Like, you're not minna Ahlul Bayt. And that would be obviously devastating, and that would that there would be no point in life for that. But it's, as you said, the Holy Prophet came down to perfect our akhlaq, and as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, we should have the best akhlaq. And that's why, for me, what I'm trying to inculcate in my children is that we have to be at the top of that. We have to be the first in that. We have to be the ones leading by example. I mean, this was something that I have felt since Khoja as well, just because of the fact that a lot of people know that I have been, so that they may not necessarily know that I'm Syed, but a lot of people know that I've studied at the Khoja for, I mean, it was very little time, but I was there. And so I remember Sheikh Bahmanpur. I mean, I was very blessed. I had some amazing teachers there, Sheikh Bahmanpur, Syed Atullah, Syed Fadil Milani, and Sheikh Shamali. But one of the things that Sheikh Bahmanpur said to us was that as Hausa students, you have a responsibility that you must go above and beyond what the normal people in the community would do, and that's kind of always stuck with me. And it kind of just bolstered the whole, okay, you have to have the best akhlaq, okay, you have to be the best, best in your behavior, you have to be the best in your, as much as you can, try to be the best in your taqwa and this and that, because it was kind of like, okay, so you're Sayyid and you've been to Hausa, okay, that's double. So it's, yeah.
I'm just thinking, obviously you've come to this realization as you've grown older, but as a youngster, it's quite a big deal. And what would you say to your child if any of them came up to you and said to you, what, I don't want this pressure, I don't want to be a Sayyid, I just want to be a normal kid? What would you say to them?
So I mean, I haven't thought exactly what I would say to my. I mean, right now he's 8, so he's kind of like, oh, I'm part of the debate, so to speak. So for him, he's enjoying it at the moment. But I can imagine that, especially as he's getting older, he may come to resent it. And it would kind of be like, okay, you know what? Even if you don't want to be a Sayyid, the point is that you are still a follower of the Ahlul Bayt, and because of that, you still have a responsibility. You still want to be the best that you can be for Allah. I'm really, really hoping he doesn't turn around and tell me he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. But I could understand if he didn't. I can understand the pressure, because it scares me, and I'm an adult. So I can imagine that, yes, it would be very difficult for him. But it would be that, you know what? Even if you don't want to be Sayyid, fine. You still have to be a Shia. That's what you are. So if that's what you are, you have to be the best that you can be. So it would
I
be
think
that.
I think it's also the expectation of others on the kids as well. It's like, when other people find out that you're a Sayyid, because I'm thinking, okay, not obviously not from a Sayyid perspective, but if you're, for example, if your parents are lecturers, or zakirs and things like that, or if you're a Maulana's kid, or even a rich person's child, or any sort of status that you have within the community, the children, there's an expectation of the children to behave in a certain way. And it's not just even religious. I'm just thinking, even if you're born into a non-religious family, there's an expectation that you're supposed to behave in this way. So if you break those norms that within that family and behave in a different way, you'll constantly hear, but why are you doing this? Or, that's not expected from you. So it could be both religious and non-religious, or, and I'm just trying to...
It could, definitely.
I'm just trying to think how we would support our children, because I'm sure a lot of kids feel that within the community, because they're constantly told. So, for example, if you are from a religious family, what's considered as a religious family as well, again, it's just people's perceptions. And if you're seen outside during the Majlis time, and you may just be going to maybe pick up something or do an errand for someone, but someone will stop you and say, how can you do that? You're the Maulana's son. You should be inside listening to the Majlis. So it's, again, those judgments and that people make. Or if you're from a non-religious family and you come to mosque with maybe a hijab or something, and someone will come around and say to you, but why are you wearing that? That's not the expectation, from you, because of the family that you're in. So I'm just trying to think what would be your advice to these kids? Because I'm sure you must have experienced that to a certain level.
Yes and no. I mean, I can go on to that. Okay, so maybe if I explain it for me. So, for example, within my family, I'm the only one that will dress in a full abaya. And it's actually, remember that there was a funny incident where I used to work part-time at a retail store, and I remember going in with my mum once, and obviously mum doesn't wear abaya. She observes hijab, but she doesn't wear an abaya, and I was in an abaya. And we were at the counter, and mum forgot something, and obviously because I was getting the staff discount, manager was there, and mum's like, oh, I forgot something. I said, all right, go ahead, go get what you want, mum. I'm sure they're happy to wait. And they were. And then when mum left, the manager goes, that was your mum? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, why are you dressed like this and she not dressed like that? He couldn't understand that I had chosen to dress this way. In his opinion, he thought that I had been told that I must dress like this when I am out, as opposed to me choosing to wear an abaya myself. But for me, that's what I wanted to do, because I felt that that's what Allah would be happy with me doing. And that's what I try and tell my children as well. So even now, as a young kid, if one person comes to me and says, oh, mama, so-and-so said this or so-and-so did that, it's kind of like, okay, but did you do what Allah wants? And are you happy with that? Are you happy that you can say to Allah, Allah, I tried my best. I think that this is what I should be doing. And then if you'll, and that's my perspective with this, that you may not be conforming to what the expectations are of you, but as long as you feel that what you're doing is what Allah wants of you, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether anyone else is doing anything right or wrong. And this is sort of our family rule. It's always like, it doesn't matter what other people do. This is what our family does, because this is what our family thinks. We think that Allah wants us to do. So that's always kind of our thing, that we do what we think Allah wants. And as long as that's the case, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. That's
really beautiful. And I think when you have that sort of mindset, then God sort of helps you and gives you the courage to be able to break those norms that are there within the expectations of the families and the culture and so forth. That's amazing. You wear a abaya. Do you, obviously you think that for you that is the hijab that you want, and you said your mum doesn't wear a abaya, she wears hijab.
So none of my other family, just me.
Just you, okay. Do you find that you look down on people who don't wear a abaya? Do you feel that their hijab is less than yours?
No, I'm very lazy. That's one of the reasons why I wear a abaya. I don't
Wow.
like shopping. It really is. Like I said, I really don't like shopping. I don't do it. So, but for me to have to go out there and look for clothes that are hijabi, I was just like, forget that. It's easier to wear an abaya. But that's one of the reasons. But I mean, at the end of the day, the rules are very clear. It's about you can obviously expose your face and your hands, and the rest of it is that the contours of your body shouldn't be shown. It's quite simple. It's not difficult. People can choose however they want to dress. For me, I just feel that when I'm in an abaya, I just feel like, okay, I don't have to worry that, okay, this cardigan is shifted here, or this is, but there are, I mean, like I even out of my friends, I'm the only one in abaya. But my other friends who practice hijab, they're brilliant at it, and they all wear long tops and loose trousers and this and that, and it's easy for them. But for me, I found this was the easiest thing for me. I mean, obviously being at Khoja, I did wear that, and I kind of just continued wearing that. And I've just found it the easiest thing for me. But and I think one of the things that has probably helped with that is that alhamdulillah, I didn't feel that it matters what other people think. I've never felt very much that it matters what other people think in terms of if I look a certain way. And I can understand that for some people that would be very difficult, because it does matter to them. And that's everybody's individual sort of characteristic and personality. But I think it helped that I was confident enough in myself that because it didn't matter to me. It was kind of like, I'll just wear an abaya, and it's worked, and it's sort of stuck. So.
Did you feel you got any sort of prejudice? You said you worked in the retail field, and so you're obviously around quite a lot of people.
Yeah. So actually, when I was working, we had a uniform where I was. So I had to buy it. But I mean, again, because I was working in that shop, I knew all the stock, so I knew what was hijabi and wasn't. So it was easy for me to therefore find hijabi items there, and I was able to then. So for that, I wasn't wearing an abaya, but I actually stopped working. Yeah, a couple of years into Khoja, in the retail sort of sector. But no, I mean, even when I as a teacher, I wore a abaya to school every single day, and I've taught at private schools, public school. I've done supply teaching, so I've taught all over the place, and every single place I've worn an abaya, and it's never been, alhamdulillah, never been an issue for me.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
alhamdulillah, that's amazing. Because I think a lot of people think it would sort of maybe cause problems work-wise and things like that, but you've not found that.
Alhamdulillah, I've been I've even with Islamophobia and stuff, I remember my parents being quite worried that what if you're attacked on the train because somebody thinks because of Islamophobia or whatever. But alhamdulillah, I've literally never had any issues. And again, I think that comes down to confidence. I think people because I don't feel I feel confident in myself, in my abaya. I don't like it's kind of it's just part of me. So because of that, because I feel confident, I think it's kind of like people realize that, okay, she's not gonna stand up for anything. I mean, I because I've never experienced Islamophobia like that. I don't want to ever judge on anybody. I don't know what it's like for other people who have, God forbid, experienced something like this. But alhamdulillah, with wearing the abaya since I was 18, I'm now 35. It's never been an issue for me.
Alhamdulillah. So I'm going to take you back to your marriage because I want to know, and other people want to know. They're asking, what challenges, if any, did you face marrying someone with a different culture? So the concept of Syed and Khoja coming together, how did that work? Was there any challenges?
So again, I mean, I think I think this is probably for every family an individual thing. Because alhamdulillah, my parents were never very traditional. The culture that they have come with is from, so my parents are from like Lucknow and UP, so India, the Indian kind of culture, whereas obviously Stanmore is more of the East African culture. But I think because my parents alhamdulillah, have been easygoing. My in-laws are really easygoing, so it's not been a problem for us. But I think that's the two families. Both the families are pretty easygoing, so there's never been kind of that culture, those cultural issues. Um, I mean, I think I had spoken to this once. I've spoken to you about this once, that during the marriage and stuff, there wasn't any of like, oh, we want it like this, and no, we want it like this. I think a lot of that, because alhamdulillah that went smoothly, and I guess this would be a little piece of advice for those who are inshallah going to be getting married and stuff, is as much as you can try and you know be easygoing about what happens at the wedding, because I know unfortunately there are still families today that will say, oh, this is what happened at the wedding, and they couldn't get over something that happened at the wedding, some disagreement that happened during the wedding, and it's kind of left that bitter taste in their mouth, and it's a shame because the families haven't been able to gel because of it. But alhamdulillah, I was very blessed that there weren't any cultural clashes. For me, the biggest thing with my wedding was that I wanted it to be Islamic as much as possible. I didn't want what I saw were rituals that didn't have a root in Islam. Now, because I had studied about Hinduism in my A levels, I was able to say, you know what, I really don't want to do this because this has roots in Hinduism that are very clear. I know the reasons for them. I just don't want it. And alhamdulillah, both my parents and my in-laws understood, and they agreed. But yeah, that was a big thing for me.
Alhamdulillah. What about between your husband and yourself? Culture-wise, no clashes there?
No, I mean, the only thing that's been sort of a bit of a challenge is trying to teach the kids both Kachi and Urdu, which it worked so well for my first child until he went to nursery. Because the thing is that my husband and I, because he speaks Kachi and I speak Urdu, we speak to each other in English, because it just doesn't work to try with him speaking in Kachi and me answering in Urdu. It just doesn't work. So, we used to speak to the kids. I used to speak to them in Urdu, and Mason used to speak to them in Kachi, and it was great. So my eldest knew to switch languages when he was speaking to my in-laws and when he was speaking to my parents. And then he started nursery, and they obviously speak English there. And then because me and Mason would speak to each other in English, he'd come home from nursery, he'd speak to us in English, and it would just kind of all carry on in English. So unfortunately, now all the kids are speaking English. But I mean, we do still speak to them. I still do speak to my kids in Urdu from time to time, and Mason does speak to them in Kachi from time to time. So I mean, the only thing I feel that we haven't perhaps been able to impart to them is the language, which is a shame. But we're trying to bring it back in slowly. I mean, as I said, I recite. So one of the things that I do want for my kids to be able to understand Urdu, just so that they can understand what they are reciting, because obviously that there's no point reciting things if you don't understand. So we would like to bring that in, but that's, I guess, been the only challenge really, is the language.
Alhamdulillah. I've asked you to give advice to youngsters based on what you went through in life and everything. I'm going to ask you to give advice to parents as a madrasa teacher who's taught sort of teenage girls. What sort of advice would you give to parents who've got teenagers?
In what terms? Like with regard to what?
The thing is, I think when we're in madrasa, as a teacher, the kids open up to you, and you can see sort of, because obviously growing up in a non-Muslim country, it's very difficult for the children to sort of bring Islam and our Khoja culture and the culture of whichever family whether you're Khoja or Iraqi or Pakistani or whatever, and also then the Western culture. And it's trying to sort of bring them all together. And I know when I was teaching you guys, and God, that shows my age, we would have lots of discussions on these sort of things. And I'm just trying to think, from the discussions that you've had with the girls, what thing would you tell the parents? What thing are you thinking about as your boys are growing up? Because obviously you've taught girls, but you've got boys as well. So really you've got both sides.
And
maybe just
at boys' schools and stuff. Like
so generally, as a teacher, as a madrasa teacher, as a parent, what advice would you give to parents?
So actually, one of the things that we are trying to inculcate within our children, that's me and Mason as our linear family, as well as a lot of my friends that we as a group of us. I happen to have 5 or 6 really good friends. All of us have boys. So we are trying to create a community for a group of friends for our own boys, where they have become friends because we are friends, because we all have the same outlook. Like, we constantly try and remind each other that our goal is for our boys to become soldiers of the Imam. And with that in mind, it's like, when we do things as a group of friends, and this is, we try to do this as a group of friends so that our boys can see this, and then when they are with their group of friends, they do the same thing. When we have a group of friends together, then we will start with Quran, or just something small, just to bring in that this is, even our friendship is for Allah.
Nice.
And so with our boys, it's the same thing. Like, a really beautiful incident that happened is, one of my friends had dropped her sons here, and our boys were playing Lego, and I was in the kitchen, and then I could hear these two reciting something, and I walked into the living room, and they were reciting "We Are Shia of Ali," and I was like, Alhamdulillah, like, it was amazing. But it's one of those things that they were both just reciting. Well, I mean, they probably didn't even realize, but they were just doing while they were playing Lego. And I was like, Alhamdulillah, that's what we're trying to keep, inshallah, in their hearts. That, what, everything is about Allah and about the Ahlul Bayt. And so one of the things that we are really trying is, if the closest group of friends for our boys are those who are from our madhab, then all of the fun, all of the interesting, all of the best things in their lives happen with these children, the ones that will be closest to them. So they are the ones that will end up being closest to them. And, you and Abbas uncle always say that, if you have that love of the Ahlul Bayt in their hearts, if you can plant those seeds, then even if the kids stray from the path, they'll come back, inshallah. So the aim is to try and make sure that the norm within your family is Islam, and that what is not normal is not Islam. So when we grew up, it was kind of like Islam was almost like a hidden thing. It was like, it's what I did at home. And it wasn't, it was not normal to not drink. It was not normal to not eat pork. It was not normal to not eat halal things, to eat halal things. Like, as in, being Muslim was abnormal growing up when I grew up. Whereas for my kids, I'm trying to make it so that being Muslim is what the normal thing is, because, our family does this. Oh, so-and-so Masi's family does this. So-and-so Auntie's friend, family does this. And so our kids see that, oh, all of the closest people to us, they all live like we do. They all pray, and they all, watch certain kinds of programs, or, attend madrasa, or all these things that we do. So, oh, this is the normal kind of life, not what is out there, if that makes sense.
But if they're going to a normal state school, then would they be considered as normal if they're Muslims?
Yeah, I mean,
especially in the environment that now that's happening within the school system and everything.
Yeah, I mean, so my eldest goes to a state school. My middle one is, inshallah, going to be starting at Hujjat Primary. So it'll be very interesting to see how that dynamic works.
Yeah.
But I mean, alhamdulillah, Muhammad Hassan takes part in school life. He's joined clubs and all that, and he takes part in all the plays and the Christmas plays and all that sort of thing. So he still takes part in that. But it's, so for example, the fact that he's not allowed the school meals, he won't eat the school meals, is because I was like, what? I've taught him that every Muslim does wudu before they cook. I don't know how true that is, but but for him, as far as
right?
Huh?
Husnizan, right?
Husnizan, exactly. So as far as he's concerned, we only eat at people's houses who are Muslim because they've done wudu and cooked, therefore the food is blessed. So, it's kind of like to make that the normal thing, so that although, there is other food available and, it's cooked in school and this, but you won't eat it because they haven't done wudu. So, it's kind of like that. So it's still normal to be in this country and live in this. And he sees that, we were both, when I was working, because I was working up until I had my second one. So he knew that, Mama was going to work, and obviously Baba does go to work. And he sees that we live in this world, in this country. He has friends who are non-Muslim. And I encourage that. I think it's very important. I mean, I'm an RE teacher. So for me, learning about different cultures and religions is a big thing. So they should be integrated into society, but the normalness of life should be Islam, as far as I'm concerned.
So I suppose what I'm getting from you, and I'm just going to summarize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is one, that as a family you have to be very God focused and Islam focused. So the choices that you make, it's that concept of how would God want us to behave, what would God want us to do, and then also making sure that the friends that they have, the close friends that they have, are with the same sort of mindset and with the same madhab. So they have the love of the Ahlul Bayt, and they're sort of thinking in the same sort of way. But then they can have friends outside, which are not close friends, but just general friends, who could be non-Muslims, and that's fine, because then it shows them that there are others as well, not just Muslims in the world.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly you've summarized it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question here. There's someone asking, would you say you and your husband are British then Pakistani / Khoja, or Pakistani / Khoja then British? And do you think this helps newlyweds who marry cross-cultural?
So actually, one of the things that I would say is that culture, I feel, has played or is playing much of a lesser role in society, especially within our community. So, I mean, growing up in Stanmore, you found that it was, and it still is, predominantly Khoja. But when I was growing up, there weren't so many non-Khojas that would attend the center regularly and stuff like that. Now there are a lot more. And I think that's only a good thing. But not just that, even within our youth, attending universities, etc., they'll have, with the APSOCs and ISOCs and all these sorts of things, they're all making friends from different cultures and stuff. And it's brilliant. I mean, like I said, growing up, when I was in madrasa, there weren't so many non-Khojas that attended madrasa. Now, if you look at madrasa, mashallah, it is, from the teachers to absolutely everybody, it's a mix of cultures. And I think that's brilliant. So much so to the extent that I don't think it really matters so much whether you are Khoja or not. And it's, I don't, in terms of, would we say that we are British and then Pakistani or Khoja? I remember when we had looked at identity at some point, and I don't identify myself as British or Khoja or Pakistani or Syed. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Shia. For me, that's the biggest. And that's what I'm trying to inculcate in my children as well, that it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what culture or heritage. What matters is that you are a follower of Imam Ali. And that's the biggest thing. Because if you've got that sorted, then everything else will fall into place. And even if it doesn't matter, sort of thing. So for me, that I don't have that emphasis on culture, so I can't say how it would help newlyweds. I don't feel I'm in the position to be able to say, how that would affect newlyweds.
So I was going to actually ask. The reason why I laughed is because someone just put up a question which I was actually going to ask next, which is, obviously every culture has its positives and negatives. So you must have. What would you say are the best aspects of the culture that you grew up in, whether you consider that to be the Syed culture or the Pakistani or the Indian culture, and what do you see as the positives within the Khoja culture?
Okay, so I mean, I guess to put it very, very simply, one of the things within the Pakistani, the Indian Pakistani sort of Syed culture, I guess, would be passion for things like azadari. Like one of the things that, so when we grew up, we wouldn't come to mosque on a Thursday night, but we would do a majlis every single Thursday. And for that, I owe that to my my marhuma Fui, who used to live with us, who was more like a grandma to us than a Fui. She was my dad's eldest sister. And every Thursday night, without fail, we would have a majlis at home. We would recite one Noha, and we would have a majlis at home. We would listen to Hadith Kisa, and we would do it as a family. And it would be remember Imam Hussein every single Thursday. And so that was a big thing. And Muharram come, we'd have a tiny little Imam Barga kind of thing set up with our alams, and that's come through to me. I've got an alam at home, and my boys, when we have anything, so Eid during Muharram, the alam will be there. So what, I remember me and you talking about this, and saying this is the alam that you're going to hand back to the imam, and said, we looked after this for you. We want to be, we did a whole majlis on being flag bearers of Islam, on being number one helpers to our imam, just like Hazrat Abbas was to his imam. So that sort of thing, that kind of passion for the Azadari and remembering Imam Hussein, who without we wouldn't have anything that we do, is definitely the highlight of that culture, of that part of my culture. In terms of the Khoja culture, one of the things I like is the fact that there's a sense of belonging to the community here. It's really nice because the community, mashallah, has grown, and it is growing. And as time has gone on, there's been so many excellent initiatives that have taken place in the community, that it's really, really nice to see that there's a sense of belonging for the kids. Like it's the fact that we haven't been able to go to mosque. my kids, my 4-year-old said to me, "Mama, I miss going to mosque," and I was like, "Yeah." We figured that we were going. I didn't think it affected him, but he misses. He's 4, but he misses going to mosque. Because he remembers going there, and it's part of, like, I mean, again, I remember, like, when Muhammad Hassan was like 2 or 3, once we had finished in the ELC upstairs, and we'd switched off lights, and he was still running around upstairs, and we'd switch off the lights thinking that he'd get scared and come down, but he wasn't scared. He's so used to going to mosque, he goes all the time.
Second home.
So and madrasa, he thinks he's principal, my eldest, because he's there all the time. So he's told all his friends that he's actually principal. But again, it's that community feel, that sense of belonging, that I think that's another thing that helps to bring in the normality of being a Shia. That's normal, because everything in life is about that. So
beautiful. Before we finish, as we're coming to 9 o'clock, one of the things that you said is you didn't like telling people that you were Syed.
Yeah.
One question would be why, and I know you've sort of said that people sort of look at you differently or treat you differently, but in a way, isn't that respect to they're sort of respecting the Holy Prophet through respecting you? But why is it that you don't want people to know?
Okay. As in, the only reason I agreed to come on this was because of you, and I can't say no to you, and you asked me to, so I had to kind of say yes. Otherwise,
well, my second question was, why would you want to do this interview? So you've answered that, because now it's out there, everyone knows.
Everyone knows, yes. Thanks, Masumanti. Well, thanks to you. So I don't think that they are necessarily respecting the Prophet through respecting me. I mean, the Holy Prophet is the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. It's like I said, for me, it's a scary thing. But also, I mean, I've seen this change in people. So, an example that I can give is your mum. When I first got married, if I hadn't seen her for a long time, she would come and whack me with her walking stick. Like, why haven't you come to see me? And I think you told her off once. And from that day, she said to me, she's like, yeah.
Can I just say, I don't tell my mum off. That would be against the class. I mentioned to her that you were a Syed and she should not treat you like that. And I actually said it to her jokingly.
I know.
But she took it very seriously.
And this is the thing. I think that as time has gone on, I think that, so in the older generation, there does seem to be a lot of that respect, just purely because of the fact that you are, Syed. So your mom to this day, she basically after that instant, after you told her that she shouldn't do that because I'm Syed, she said to me, she goes, Masuma told me I shouldn't hit you with my stick. And I said, why not? She goes, because you're Syed. I was like, oh. But to this day, she has never ever done that again. Bless her. But and it's just because you told her that I'm Syed, even though relationship wise I'm her granddaughter. So it didn't make any difference to me. But that change came out when she found out. I mean, like, for example, my father-in-law, he still speaks to my dad. He doesn't call him Ahmed Bhai, he calls him Syed Ahmed, out of respect for the fact that he is a Syed. So that change, people suddenly like, oh, I should respect you just because you're a Syed. Like I said, I feel that it's something that I should earn, and I've never necessarily sort of gone out there and told people, because I've seen that change, and it's kind of been like, no, wait, I'm not deserving of that yet. Let me work towards it, and then let's see what happens when I die, kind of thing.
I think one of the things that you said, which was very, very beautiful, was that your akhlaq should show, if they find out that you're a Syed, then it should be, oh yeah, that makes sense, because her akhlaq shows that she is a Syed, rather than just giving you that respect because you're a Syed. Obviously, there is a respect because there is that lineage to the Holy Prophet. But I love the way that you put it down to, my akhlaq should show that I'm a Syed, and it shouldn't come as a surprise when they find out that I'm a Syed, which I thought was beautiful.
Thank
you. I think I think for all of us listening to this, if we could take away from that from this conversation, our akhlaq should show people that we are Shias.
Definitely.
I think they should look at us and think there's something different about this person, and then they should be told, and then they'll be told it's because they're a Shia, I mean, imagine Imam Ali alayhi salam hearing that. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
SubhanAllah, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much for agreeing. I'm sorry I put you on the spot. I'm sorry. No, it's been really amazing, and I'm sure people have got a lot out of it. And it's a beautiful story. You know, it's really nice that you've shared your life with us. And there's been a lot of lessons that we can take away from that. Although, you know, you don't have to be a Sayyid, but like you said, we can still be from the Holy Prophet's family just by our akhlaq. So, you know, that's what's important. So yeah, thank you very, very much. Inshallah, Allah accepts from you, and inshallah, He gives us all the tawfiq to become the Shias of Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Join us again next Sunday for another special guest at 8 o'clock, inshallah. Thank you. Ma salama.